Hey guys, Jarretman here, back with some more 500 Zoom. Picking up where we were in the last video, if you watched that video and or if I decided to upload that video. Who knows what could happen, right? Oh, I know I just pressed it, but let me just make sure everything is recording. Okay. Again, not the greatest pool that I've ever played in. I think I mentioned that in the last video. It's a lot of familiar faces. Not many weaker players, not many unknown players. More than one player in this pool right now who I think are better than me, which is not good. It's never good to play against players who you are expected to lose against. Especially when there's the rake, where everyone is expected to lose versus the rake. King 5 off is the bottom, but I think deeper we get to peel even more. Even these like trashy offsuit hands, whatever, I think our just overall frequency goes up. I think specifically with the 5, we'll float this king high versus 1/4. It's close. It's really, really close. I might just be completely spewing. Reopening the turn is kind of interesting with our hand because it might already be a hand we're not supposed to have. I think just blind v blind we can shoot on king high here. Okay. Okay, yeah. I don't know. Probably just got the fish mark in that hand there. It feels okay, but I don't know. Roll a check here with the ace queen. We can check raise, we can check call. Check raise is a little thin, but it's in there. We have a very strong hand here. And now after the flop goes check check on this board, I think we could include overbets if we wanted to. I'm just going to normal bet though, just play normal bet or check. The ace 3 suited versus the cutoff. You could low frequency get it into the 3-bet range, but I'm just going to fold. I think it's a little too loose if we start doing every suited ace there. 8-4 off will be a raise some of the time. Check back some of the time. We mix basically all of our complete garbage into the raising range some of the time versus the limp. We're kind of screwed on this board on table 2. Obviously with our hand we don't really care, we just fold, but with most of our range we're just screwed. Screwed. It's not that we don't have some ace X on that ace king board. We'll call the ace 10 here. And it's really close on the turn actually. I think this hand gets into the folding range more than it gets into the calling range. We do have to continue to call down some ace highs in this spot. Check 10 suited, not quite good enough to cold 4-bet in that spot. As we get deeper, we can open the button a bit wider, but it gets kind of interesting, and I don't know the answer when one of the players is deep and one of the players is 100 big blinds. I think it's more important who the big blind is. If the big blind is 300 effective with me, and the small blind is 100 effective, the ranges are going to be more along what it if everyone was 300 big blinds, whereas if the small blind was 300 and the big blind was 100, the ranges will be more like what it should be if it was everyone was 100 big blinds. If that makes any sense at all. Versus the almost pot, we'll just fold the ace-9. In this line, I don't think we have any showdown value because any hand worse than king high is probably going to bluff from him anyways. Yeah, I'm going to bluff this one on 71. Again, a spot where we have to be careful not to overbluff. I don't mind our blockers, actually, in that hand. But I'd be lying if I knew exactly what the strategy was. So me liking the blockers doesn't really mean much, does it? If I don't know. If I don't know what the strategy looks like, me liking the blockers is just me guessing. Just simplifying. Bet 1/3 here, I think is fine. I think big bet or check is better overall. I think we lose too much EV by doing the strategy blind v blind. I think we need to build a checking range regardless. In table 1 versus the big bet, I'm still tempted to check raise, but I roll a 34. We'll go for the check call. Aces makes a nice check call. I'm not sure, you know, versus the big bet, a lot of his range is still going to be 10x, less so 9x when he uses the big bet. And then he'll just have a lot of bluffs. And when he uses the big bet, I think he will have high equity bluffs on the flop. And raising versus that range, I don't know if it's the greatest thing in the world, but it can't be bad. This is really interesting now on table 1. I just got ahead of 10-9 and 9-8 and 10-8. We're gonna fold the 9s here. And he has king 10. So yeah, I could have raised the flop. It's just the balance of whether you, when you have aces specifically, if you want to weight one way or another, you should weight towards, I guess, how often you think your opponent is bluffing you, like airballing you with a low equity hand compared to how often they have a 10 or high equity hand. And we'll raise or call on table 1. And most likely check back the turn, value bet the river. Betting the turn's an option too. Now he has 10x to call us, which is actually nice. I don't mind the 10 on the river. I think it's actually a good card for my exact hand. Neither of us have that many full houses. He has maybe slightly more. So maybe the 10 will give him some check raises that he wouldn't have had otherwise. I think his hand might even be a bet on the river, by the way, the king 10 down here, when he has the king of spades. It's really close. I don't know the big bet on the flop line as well as I do the small bet on the flop line. King 6 suited is close in the hijack. I don't hate stabbing the flop with this type of hand, to be honest. And it does have some low backdoor straight drop potential. It blocks some of his folds on the flop, but I don't mind just airballing this flop occasionally. And now I think we definitely overbet. Don't want to go too huge. It sucks to get jammed on here. He shouldn't jam on us a lot, but I think this player might jam on us sometimes, unfortunately. But I don't think it matters. I think this one just goes for 3. Maybe I'm getting out of line on the flop already, but I don't hate it. I think I want to check and hopefully see a river here on table 2. This is awkward now. I don't think I'm reversed versus a heart flush very often in this spot, so I'm gonna call. Table 1, we're gonna bet sometimes, check sometimes. Versus the 10 big blind 3-bet, our range becomes significantly wider than versus an 11, 12, or bigger. So just keep that in mind across different textures as best we can. It's not a huge influence, but it is an influence. Not going to play any raises on this board. You could actually play some raises built around your 5x range. Because this board has a king, he's allowed a king x to call you down when you do have a 5. However, I think the fact that he is basically drawing dead with his Broadway and ace high region when you have a 5 outweighs the fact that he has some kings to call you down. So I'm just electing to play no raises here on the flop. And our hand just calls down. Just call down here. I don't think we get to fold any kings by the river. We even have worse kings than this, by the way, because this is one of the considerations because he went smaller pre-flop. So we have all the way down to, I think, even like king 4 suited at some frequency. Having the 10 of spades is not necessarily the best card. However, I don't think it matters enough to consider folding the river. We have to call down non-king hands, so we have to call down a king anyways. Lose a decent amount, but it doesn't really matter. It sucks to have the 10 of spades because his highest frequency bluffs will be spade hands here, but again, I don't think it matters. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I misclicked that ace 5 suited there. Oh well. That one's not, didn't lose too much EV there. So when he bets 1/3 on the flop, we have to float basically every Broadway backdoor, a lot of ace high backdoors, if not all of them. Every ace queen, maybe every ace jack. Sizing up because we're deeper here on table 2. So then when we get to the turn, he bets again. We start folding, you know, some of these backdoor float hands. That's where our folds come from. And then our calling range still has some pairs in it. It still has some ace queen. It still has obviously the club flush draws. And then it'll have all of our king X. And then by the river, when he jams, our folds come from the pair region, the ace queen region. And even those have to hero call down sometimes, I think. I don't mind throwing in the 4-bet here, being 300 big blinds deep. I'd rather have a suited hand here, but on 89, I don't mind throwing in the 4-bet with the ace 10 off. Just because we're deeper, we get to do this more often. At 100 big blinds, I just fold. Roll call with the 6s here, and we'll call versus the 1/4 on table 1. So his range is going to be a lot stronger than a normal 4-bet pot. However, I think with my exact hand, I'm just going to throw in the 25% bet. I think he's going to have queens full frequency. I think he's probably going to have kings full frequency, aces maybe full frequency. It depends how he's playing it, right? He's going to have ace king maybe full frequency. Basically what I'm saying is there's a chance he's not playing 5 bets. I'm going to check it back on table 1. And we're going to keep betting on table 2. Just targeting his ace kings on the turn and his middling pair region. I think I'll bluff diamonds. I'm already like way out of line in this hand to begin with because this hand, again, is only because we're deeper. And even then, I don't think it is necessarily allowed. But if we never get 5 bet, then I think it's definitely allowed. This is a really horrible spot on table 1. I think with the 6 of spades and on a 51 we'll call. And then table 2 we'll check it back, win versus 7s, 8s, 9s some of the time. Aces make sense. I like the king of diamonds here because his king of diamonds hands are going to mostly bet the flop. So we're not blocking any folds with the king of diamonds, I'd say. And the 9 of clubs is obviously a good card to bet. Versus a weaker player, I'm just going to play 1/3 with range. If you wanted to go crazy, you know, versus weaker players, you could just bet big when you have a really strong hand, bet small when you have a bluff. I still don't do that. I still try to play balanced even versus the weaker players. Maybe that's a mistake. I'm going to give this one up on table 2. I think way too much of his range is ace-x and king-x that is not going to fold. With my 0 equity hand that blocks his folds, I'm just going to give it up. The river's interesting. I'm going to bet a size where his jack-10, queen-jack can fold, whereas I think his kings and aces are always going to call me anyways, or 8. Basically, any pair is always going to call me, so I'm just going to try to size an efficient river bluff there. Efficient in the sense that if the hands that are going to fold are jack-10, queen-jack, queen-10, they're going to fold versus my size and they're going to fold versus the larger size. I'm tempted to just start raising this because we're 200 big blinds deep, but this hand I don't think can call versus the limp 3-bet, so I do think we want to check it back mostly. It's in that like category where it's too weak, too strong. Too weak to raise, too strong to raise. And we'll float the flop, I think. Backdoor straight draw, backdoor flush draw. 200 big blinds deep. Kind of like raising the turn here, small. I think when we do have a king, we do want to start building some raises, and I think he will have a lot of hands that have to fold that obviously we're behind to. We have equity when called. When we do raise the turn, I don't really want to size very large here at all. I understand it's a very narrow range that wants to raise the turn. Especially when we check back, sorry, not when we check, when you check back pre-flop. It's a very, very, very narrow range that wants to raise the turn, but it is there. And it is built around some King X that do want to raise sometimes, I think. And anyways, the counter to us if we are getting out of line and raising the turn too much would be to 3-bet us on the turn, which is not a fun spot to do. 200 big blinds deep, unknown. I've never played with this guy before, so like if he just calls us pretty wide, if we're raising him with these like decent equity hands, we're not being punished. We get punished if he starts 3-betting us on the turn, I'd say. That really lowers our EV a lot because now we have to fold a hand that was a very profitable call. That's a big assumption to make, though. Like I said, versus an unknown player, you're playing 200 big blinds deep, limp pot. Yeah, I don't know. On a 6, we'll check on table 2. Maybe go for an overbet on the river. We'll see. I'm tempted to go for a check raise versus this size on the turn. I think I will. This size is like, I have 6s. I turn to 7. The size isn't I check back an overpair on the flop. The size isn't I check back King Jack or Ace Jack on the flop. And he does fold, okay. And I was also gonna say it. Also, the size isn't the size doesn't scream like I have a pure air bluff to me as well. I don't know. Maybe he's just sizing, half pot with range there. And if he's just sizing half pot with range, then everything I said makes no sense. A lot of options here on the turn where we turn ace king, he doesn't. However, 180 big blinds, 175 big blinds effective. He will have some ace king off in his pre-flop range, actually. Or at least they're supposed to. I think I'm going to normal size. I think splitting here does make some sense. We can do basically whatever we want on the turn. With my exact hand, I think that overbetting is a little too ambitious. And if I had to choose like one strategy here, I think I'd still rather just use the normal bet than I would just playing like a huge overbet or check. And easy check back on the river. Win sometimes versus missed shit, but lose sometimes versus river diamonds. Roll a 3-bet with the Jack 10 suited versus a large 4-bet where we'll fold, and versus a small one we'll call. Ace 4 off is close, being 200 big blinds deep between opening and folding. I think with the 8 of diamonds, we will call here. It's like 9-8 has to be one of our worst 9x to call, but I think when we have the 8 of diamonds, and I guess the 9 of spades matters as well, we'll peel one on the flop. We do not have to continue every backdoor flush draw type hand here in that spot. We get to overfold a lot on that king high board. On 21, I'm going to fold the 7-6 suited under the gun. In table 1, I think I'm going to bluff my 9x here. I don't have much ace jack, but I do have jack x. I think I'm going to block based around the fact that I don't have much ace jack. And he calls with ace queen. Seems like a reasonable bluff catcher, I suppose. The nice thing about blocking is we get to block some 2 pairs and 7-8. Whereas if we bet too big, we're just saying we have a jack. That's it. 300 big blinds deep here on table 2. Going to put Jimmy in a lot of tough spots across a lot of different runouts, that's for sure. And I think I'm going to start with a bet here, again, being deep. We get to... He cannot comfortably check raise ace queen, ace king on this board, so we get to over-realize being 300 big blinds deep. And he, being out of position, unfortunately, severely under-realizes. And he's going to have a very tough spot. With any hand that's not a set or two pair here, to be honest, he's going to be in a very, very tough spot. Interesting turn here, because now I no longer need to slam the value. I think when he does check call the flop, when I bet this big and we're this deep, again, under the assumption that he under realizes, less of his range is the kings to jacks region, and more of his range is like ace king, ace five. And we are now ahead of some of his heart draw hands, but I'm still going to bet the turn. All that being said, I'm still going to bet the turn. Trying to set up some river jams. I don't think the 10 gives me any showdown value, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I really don't think it does. We're ahead of some of the heart hands that would check call the flop. But I really think that the 10... it improves a lot of my hands. And yeah, I don't think there's much showdown value to be had. Like, I'm not happy checking the turn and then the river is a 2 of clubs and then he checks and I check back. I don't think I ever win in that line, to be honest. Table 1, we can block or check. I think just doing very frequent blocking makes a lot of sense. We have infinite ace highs. Not to mention we also have some 6x. He snap called me with the 3 there. I don't know about that one, man. Maybe he rolled it quickly, but I don't know if that 3 is a snap call in that spot. I mean, it's Yarosov. I think he's a better player than I am, so he probably knows better. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that 10-8 hand, I'm not really looking... when I'm 300 big blinds deep in position, I'm not really looking to play standard, I guess you could say. At least not what you're used to seeing at 100 big blinds deep. Looking to apply a lot of pressure. I think jamming a lot of rivers in this spot. Like, so after he does check call the turn, I think I'm going to just mostly jam rivers. Like, we turn Jack-8 suited that he doesn't have. We turn 6-8 suited, which he doesn't have. Being 300 big blinds deep, that matters a lot more than 100 big blinds deep. At 100 big blinds deep, he doesn't really care. He can just get in ace-king anyways. At 300 big blinds deep, he can't. At 300 big blinds deep, the only hand he's happy to even check call a brick river on would be pocket aces. And even that isn't that happy. Like, I have 8 combos of straights that potentially are betting the flop pure. Maybe not pure, that's a little ridiculous. I think this one we can just bet range with half pot on table 2. Even deep. Again, in position deep, we over-realize, they under-realize. They're in a rough spot. 5-4 of spades, 5-4 suited, sorry, is a higher frequency 3-bet being deeper here. Maybe even pure, being 300 big blinds deep. And we're going to do a lot of overbetting on the turn. The 6 doesn't improve any of his hands, being 300 big blinds deep. How many times have I said being 300 big blinds deep in this video? Jeez. I think we want to use a larger sizing, and I think all of my overpairs are still strong enough to bet that size. We'll be mixing all of our total air on table 1. On 56, I will bet the queen 3 suited. We will check back some total air, though. We don't just get to bet all of our air all the time. This is going to be fun. The downside in this spot, I know it sounds stupid, is that with the cold caller, the cold caller often has jacks and queens. So we really don't want to see our set with a higher card up there, to be honest. But we're in pure position, so we're going to call. If the cold caller was on the button, I would definitely consider folding 10s here. We'll float 1 versus small, having the 10 of diamonds. We have 5-6 suited, 10-9 suited maybe, being 300 big blinds deep. Yeah, we'll probably have all of those. We have the king high diamond hands. We have 5-4 suited. A lot of turn cards coming in that improve our range that don't improve his range is what I'm trying to say. Although he should include some of these suited connector type hands into his 4-betting range pre-flop. It's not my favorite turn, to be honest. For the simple fact that aces has a full house. I'm going to block, though. I'm going to bet small and just try to get him off queens, jacks, kings. I do turn some eights here, but not many. I guess I'm essentially saying I have ace king. And do I think he folds ace king by the river? That is the question. I want to bet a size that an 8 can bet and that a flush can bet. And I think I want to bluff this hand. And if he calls us with ace king, with the king of diamonds, whatever, nice hand. And if he jams on us, he has aces, whatever, nice hand. I'm completely fine using this hand as a bluff here, I think. We rivered 5-6. We still have, like I said, that 8x, like 7-8, 9-8. And we have a decent amount of flushes as well. I'm going to bet 1/3 here. I don't think it's necessarily a thing unless we're splitting, but I like betting 1/3 with that hand. We get it through. He'll have like some ace-queen suited, some ace-king that need to fold the river. So it's maybe not like the greatest spot of all time to bluff the river, but it's not fun to call down with ace-king there. The bottom of my value isn't even ace-king by the river. I don't think I'm going to bet ace-king. It's close if I had the king of diamonds, I'll say that. Again, just going with my general theory of when playing deep, when you're in position, you just apply a lot of pressure, and when you're out of position, you just kind of check and get screwed. So when I am in position, I like to put the bets in. Before I started playing online poker, all the studying of poker I did was for deep live cash games, or the majority of it anyways. So I feel a little comfortable being deep, but it doesn't matter how comfortable you are playing deep. Whenever you're out of position, you're just kind of screwed. Like you're just, it's not in a good spot. So this is an example here. So 200 big blinds deep, we'll just call the ace queen off. The studying I did was different than this, though. I've never done any studying about 500 zoom deep. All the studying I did was for straddle games, which makes it slightly different. We could raise, we can call on table 2. And I don't think we want to raise anymore on the turn here. I think we just want to call. King 6 off is close. For me, it's going to be a fold, a raise, and a call some of the time. And I think we will check call the river with our combo with the queen of spades. He doesn't bluff the queen of spades by the river. He's not going to bluff ace highs by the river. So we just have 2 unblockers to the bluffing range. His hands that are going to bluff are going to be hands like Jack 9, Queen Jack that don't have the queen of spades. Very lower hands like 6-7, 7-8. And if he's value betting us thin with like a 10, good for him. Yeah, and that's pretty standard. Where's the jack on the turn, dealer? Where's the jack of hearts on the turn? Come on. All right, we're gonna wrap this video up sometime soon. Could call the small blind here on table 1. This is now interesting facing the 4-bet. It's a little spewy, but I wouldn't mind jamming it here. And definitely going to start with a range check on table 1. And then check fold versus that size, but I do want to see the rest of this hand. Don't do it. Don't do it. $70 big blinds deep. Actually 75 big blinds deep. I think we do want to have a non-all-in 4-bet size. Ace king off will do both, though. It's going to shove. It's going to non-all-in 4-bet. It'll even call some of the time. I think on 90 we'll just all in. Uh-oh. Phew. That was close. All right, these are going to be our last two hands. Versus non-regs, I'm not really too concerned about betting large here when I have kings. Again, I still try to play a balanced strategy, so it's not like my large bet here isn't going to have any bluffs. It will. But I'm definitely going to end up being more unbalanced in this line. Definitely weighted towards one or the other, but it's not necessarily going to be weighted towards more value or more bluffs. Those aren't really useful distinctions anyways. Okay, yeah, that's it for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.